You have found the Redhead Family Therapy Guy and a Mic podcast, looking at mental health through a pop culture lens.
And we have to. This is a major problem in our culture that we share, and in American culture, of perfectionism and this idea of like it's bad to fail. And it's like, dude, it's not bad to fail. Like, I understand it doesn't feel good. None of us want it. But like, you can't be great at something unless you spend 40,000 hours doing it. Karate Kid is an example. Like, he can't be, I mean, even though it's a short amount of time and it's a little magical at how good he gets, which we can, acknowledge it's movie magic. But
I mean, didn't he have to paint the fence or again
yes.
or something?
I mean,
what was it? There was something he wasn't waxing well, right? So
he wasn't waxing off very good.
But here's the thing. Failure is really not failure.
Exactly.
Right?
This is exactly it, right? But if you have that insecure attachment, which is such a great point, then failure is failure instead of failure is a learning process.
And failure is more than failure. Failure is I'm bad.
Bad, exactly, right? It becomes the internalized idea, which is really the heart of shame, which we've got to do an episode on. The heart of shame being that I'm not worthy of love and belonging, right? And so if you have that, then you're scared to go into the world.
Yes.
Because there's going to be naysayers. There's going to be Johnnies. I mean, they are real and they're out there and it's painful. I mean, the rejection that Daniel goes through in the beginning of the movie is the new kid that shows up. He gets invited. Yeah. There is some connection. He's on the beach. He's being encouraged. The girl's giving him eyes. He goes over. It goes well. And then, it blows up. With the villain Johnny, and social pressure, and
Johnny needed a Miyagi.
He did not have a Miyagi.
He did not have a Miyagi.
No mercy.
Poor John Kreese.
And so that's real, right? Like, I mean, life is hard, and and social pressure for teenagers, and I can't even imagine trying to negotiate that in a social media world, is complicated, hard stuff. But we've got to get away from this idea that failure is bad, and really. A part of what Miyagi does and a part of what Daniel has is the resilience of failure.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good, but it's a part of the learning. Not that it's even okay. It's just a part of the process.
And is failure is like a past tense thing, right? Where's
you're
the
going to as well, right?
Yeah. And so I think instead of how we conceptualize failure, maybe conceptualize the growth, right? How is this progressing me? Like, if I am successful in something, I'm excited, right? I'm like, oh, okay, now what am I going to do? But shouldn't failure create or breed excitement too? Like, what can I do next? Like, how can this help me
anybody
move forward?
That has any sense about them understands that you can't have success without failure, right? Like, if you take a minute and think about it, so why is failure such a big deal or so bad in our culture and society, right? Like, I mean, that's seriously
and that gets into we can know something, but do we believe it?
Right.
And there's a difference there between, well, I can understand that just because I did this doesn't mean I'm a bad person, but do I believe that? Do I believe that I'm not a bad person because this happened? And I think that, I think there's a lot of things, but I think shame culture, right, in general, feeds into, I mean, it's not new. This is something that's been around forever.
No, I know. I'm just trying to punctuate, like, I mean, if this makes good sense, it's interesting. I guess it's just, and I don't want to get down the rabbit hole of like the negative effects of media, and all of that. But it's interesting to consider.
I think media speeds things up, right? But I would say that there's been shame. There's had to. I don't know for sure, but I would think there's been shame.
I think
in
part
these
of it
things
too. I think to boil down, one of the aspects of why media is problematic in furthering this idea that failure is not okay is because media doesn't necessarily celebrate that process, right? It's just like the flashy, big, beautiful body, lots of money, lots of fame. Yeah. Like, that's so celebrated. and the whole story is not told, right? Like any incredible athlete will tell you, like if you listen to, like our era was Michael Jordan, right?
Sure.
And so like, come on, dude, Michael Jordan was ridiculous, right? Like he was such iconic. I didn't even care one bit about basketball, but I watched some Bulls games and knew a little bit about Michael Jordan and know a little bit about him now. But one of the things I have done that's fascinating to me that I do is I'll watch interviews and stuff with people that have been, crazily successful, just to hear like how they think about things, what kind of hardships have they been through, what overcame. And they'll tell you like Kobe Bryant, one of the things that he talked about on one of the interviews I saw after his death and where people were remembering and memorializing him and celebrating him, there was this interview that I saw where he talked about like the NBA lifestyle, and they'd play a game, they'd go have dinner, and he'd go back to the arena and practice for like 3 more hours while the rest of the guys were partying. It's like, well, that's why Kobe Bryant's the best, and Michael Jordan wasn't any different. Like guys, and this is the thing that people don't give attention to. One of the things I talk to clients all the time about, it's like, look, you're watching a YouTube video of some kid solving a Rubik's Cube in 4 seconds, or some hardcore, jumping all over the place and spin around, or somebody doing 55 backflips on a trampoline with 4 other people. But like the thing that people don't realize is like, that's all they do.
Yeah.
Like that trampoline kid, how many hours do you think he spends on that trampoline?
Well, and the interesting thing is, I think at some point you have to determine what is it that you want, because there's sacrifices that have to be made.
Absolutely.
To have those, like,
so
to
this
be
is
that
one
good.
of the things, right? And one of the things that I think is portrayed well in the movie is, Daniel's going, Miyagi's doing his mysterious mentor thing, with the paint the fence and wax the cars and paint the house, and he's all.
Which translates
into
awesome karate,
ninja awesome skills in 4 days. It's like, watch out, Saka.
I have waxed many a car, and it's not translated for me,
dude. But seriously, that's like the coolest. Like that's the coolest scene in the film. That's I love that scene. It's ridiculous, but it's fantastic at the same time, right? But the cool thing that happens, and I'm trying to remember what. There's something happens in the movie where, the initial training is him and. It's him and Miyagi. And then what happens? Something happens in the movie that's significant where then there's a whole scene where Daniel's out on his own. He's out on the boat by himself, standing and practicing the katas. There's a scene where he's at the beach trying to learn himself the crane kick. And it's on his own, right? And that hit me as a kid. I remember being like, oh, if I want to be good at something, I need to go put in time. Like it was manifested in that movie. And that's a part of it, right? Like there was some other thing that happened. Anyway,
well, there was when was the scene where he was with Miyagi and Miyagi was drunk, right? Because it was the anniversary. It was the anniversary of his wife, right?
Yeah, his death, right? So that was another thing that I thought was really significant in Daniel's growth, was to realize that there was pain and struggle in Miyagi's life. Like we don't know anything about Miyagi, and it's such a well done scene, right? Like it's so appropriate. In the way that what's going on, and he's drunk and he's being like lighthearted, and he's not, like he was always kind of serious and kind of intense or whatever. And I thought it was such a beautiful scene for Daniel to mature and be like, oh, my teacher has real pain.
Yeah.
Like he knows it. And here he is. And that clicked something like in him, like I need to do.
Because it's a realization that, hey, even someone who has some secure attachment is still human.
Yeah.
Right? It's not perfection. There's still going to be things.
Well, like tragic. I mean, it's horribly tragic, right? Like that his wife died in and the thing that I didn't catch this time because I wasn't educated when I was watching as a kid, he mentions that he got the news that his wife and daughter died in one of the camps, right? And I didn't know American history as a kid to know that Japanese Americans were put in camps.
Yeah.
And so, she probably wasn't getting good care. And here he is fighting, for our country, and his wife and, his pregnant wife gets poor care probably in one of these camps, doesn't have access to good doctors and dies in childbirth. and he's ostensibly remains tragically alone for the rest of his life until his late age, when he takes up Daniel, which is fantastic and beautiful. And so I think that is the scene where after that it like clicks, and he's like, wow, this is real, and if I want this, I have to do something. Pain is real, my pain is real, I have to kind of grow up and do something here. And he starts to get serious about his own training. So that's powerful.